Welcome to another episode of Second Take as we continue keeping you informed and, of course, trying to have a good laugh. In the last week, Zambia celebrated its 60th Independence Day. So part of today's episode is going to be the episode I did in Zambia, talking about the beautiful nation and a little bit about the political landscape. We're also going to dive into the upcoming Namibia elections. Yes, that's right. Hashtag Namibia Decides 2024. I'll be talking to our ghetto Greg as well as Irene Marie van der Walt. In fact, I spoke to our ghetto a while ago. We're going to recap on that conversation and see where Namibian minds are at heading towards election. And for some reason, Zimbabwe is involved. Welcome to Second Take. Buribwanji, Tiribuino. Yeah, you're probably not used to that. That's because we are live in Zambia. That's right. Second Take is coming to you from Zambia, and my oh my, what a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And I'm excited to get into the show with you. So let's talk about Zambia for a bit. You know, Zambia are the chief exporters of copper. Don't ask them too much about who's doing the manufacturing of the copper. Comes from Zambia. And they send it out. That's what matters. All of Africa's big five can be found in Zambia. You know, we're talking lions, rhinos, elephants. There's also Victoria Falls. It's shared by Zambia and Zimbabwe. Do not say that to Zambians. If you know what's good for you, just if you're in Zambia, Victoria Falls is in Zambia. Don't get creative. Don't start saying no, but the geography and then the statue is this side. However, you know, when you look at the Victoria Falls debate between Zambians and Zimbabweans, you realize that Zambians and Zimbabweans might be the only Africans who are capable of banter that doesn't turn violent. Because that banter has been going on for years and years. And it's always fun. Sometimes you see someone post on TikTok, you know, maybe someone from Europe going, oh, I'm visiting Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe. And then the first messages you see under there is Zimbabweans saying they are coming. And indeed, they will arrive, Zambians, to come and take on that debate. But, you know, between Zambia and Zimbabwe, I realized there's a way that we can handle this. There's a way that Zambia and Zimbabwe can figure out the Victoria Falls debate. And I'm going to put this proposal to both countries. Whoever won the last football match has got the Vic Falls until the next football match. Now, because I'm in Zambia, I don't want to talk about who won the last football match. You can do your own research. But I think that could be a good way for the banter to continue in a healthy manner, and we can at least have some semblance of, a system that allows us to, establish where Victoria Falls is going day to day. So Victoria Falls, very big in Zambia. Mosiwa Tunya, it means the smoke that thunders. What a beautiful, beautiful name. You actually wonder why it stayed being named Victoria Falls. You know what I mean? Mosiwa Tunya, the smoke that thunders. It's got more texture. It's got more vibrato, more oomph. It's got more spine. But, it is what it is. However, speaking of Mosiwa Tunya, Zambian lager, Mosi lager. Oh, my goodness. Quality stuff. I just heard of a referral. I'm not saying I had it myself. I'm joking. Of course, I had some Mosi Lager. It's beautiful. I think Mosi Lager should have its own statue when you enter Zambia so that people can understand that it is definitely one of the good things that come out of this wonderful country. So, Zambia is surrounded by 8 countries, which is, super cool. So, Angola, DRC, Tanzania, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia. And of course, Zambian people are incredibly friendly. And South Africans can't relate. You know what I mean? Wink. But Zambian people are incredibly friendly, very, very welcoming. In fact, sometimes you find that if you don't say where you are, they're not concerned. Where you're coming from, they're not concerned about where you're coming from, really. They're just concerned, with the experience that you have, and the respect. Because they've had something I noticed also from the social landscape is there's quite a few folks that come from different places, India, Somalia. When I say quite a few, I'm underselling it. Quite a lot. There's quite a lot of them. But Zambians are very welcoming people if you're respectful to their hospitality, if you know what I mean. If you're not respectful to their hospitality, there's a lot of space going down Mosiwa Tunya. I'm just putting that for you. So, lively cities, lively people, very, very friendly. Zambia has got the legendary, it's now etched in history, the legendary AFCON 2012 champions, Chipolo Polo, and they've also got the best football team in Zambia, Copper Queens. Yes, I said it. I'm sorry. I'm not watching Chipolo Polo at Olympics. I don't make the rules. The highest paid female footballers in the world play for the Copper Queens. So if you're a Chipolo Polo guy, that's good. But I'm just saying the best team in Zambia is Copper Queens. I ask you to prove me wrong. Earlier in the year, midway through the year actually, we spoke to our ghetto Greg about the upcoming Namibian elections. He is a journalist with Republican, and this is what he had to say. Namibia also has an election, an important election, a pivotal election after the passing of Dr. Hage Geingob. Of course, he wasn't going to be running, but that did leave presumed power vacuum, because you've always kind of known how it's going to go, and it's not feeling like that. But I also feel like a huge reason it doesn't feel like that is I don't feel the campaigns.
Yes, that's something that is definitely missing. And even the issues which would be the center of campaigns, they are not being brought center stage.
Yes.
You know, you have, I read in today's paper, politicians in parliament are going to be discussing the proliferation of international music on radio stations, which is nothing. It's not an issue. It's a non-issue.
That's not the thing we're discussing. And of course, peace and love to all Namibian artists. Absolutely priority to make sure that local music is played on radio stations.
Yeah.
But we can handle that.
Yes.
I think we've got huge pressing issues that we have not been able to handle for time after time after time. I mean, housing crisis. We don't even know how to start over there. It doesn't feel like people have the clarity they need, the people outside with regards to
the
green
housing
hydrogen.
crisis. You know, there was a presentation made to Parliament on Monday. Yeah, and where the Ministry of Urban and Rural Development, they gave figures for how many houses have been built and how many urban have been serviced over the last 7-8 years.
Yes.
It's about 15,100 houses.
Yeah.
But we're in a backlog of 300,000 houses. So you build 15,000 houses over the last 7 years. The backlog has been increasing. The situation is getting more and more dire, you know, but your attention
at Parliament is whether or not to listen to Kendrick Lamar or Gaza. That's what you're dealing with.
Last weekend, there was a protest march organized by Basic Income Grant Coalition.
Absolutely. Yes.
And lots of young people participated in that march.
A golden opportunity.
You know, the youth vote is so important.
They believe the millennials, the youth, are the majority of the voters.
They are the majority of the voters.
Yeah.
And currently we are struggling to convince them just to go register to vote. Which any party which is serious about winning should be at the forefront of that push to get young people to register to vote.
Did any politicians co-sign the basic income grant?
None of the political parties publicly have said that they support the push for basic income grant. You know, I called PDM's McHenry Vernani. He said that he doesn't support something that's for everybody. You can't be giving millionaires money, he says. And that's why he says that if they come into power, they'll look at youth unemployment grant. You know, they want to target their assistance. And even IPC, I spoke to Ims Mashandi, he said that they want to do something better. They support the idea that something needs to be done. That, too many Namibians are suffering, but they say that they'll reveal to us on 28 August what their plan is.
Very interestingly, because
LPM did say that they did a study about it 2 years ago, and in principle they back it, but they haven't publicly said so, because when the first people I contacted were the coalition and asked them, now who's backing you? And they say, now nobody, nothing. There's no interest from the political parties to support that cause. But it's just an example of, I think, a disconnect between the political parties and the political leadership in Namibia and the realities that Namibians face.
So it's a classic case of political ambitions versus actually servicing the community and what the community needs. And look, I hear things like, okay, you don't also want to give millionaires 500. I mean, I assume basic income grant, the idea is this is the right to dignity for everybody.
No, actually, the basic income grant comes from the NAM Tax Consortium, which was a group of tax experts brought together by government in 2002 and tasked to figure out a way to broaden and deepen the tax base. We've got a problem that too few Namibians pay tax, and we're not generating enough tax so that the government doesn't have the money to do all the things, build the hospitals and all the things that we need done. That's what they say. That's what they said then already. Okay. And the NAM Tax Consortium took 6 months to study, and they came back to Parliament and said, we figured out the problem. The problem is that too many Namibians don't spend any money in any given month. Taxes comes from money spent. If money is not spent, there can be no taxes. So they said the solution is to give everybody just a little bit of money. Just a little bit of money. They weren't talking about improving your life or your welfare or whatever you're going to spend it on. These were tax experts. They were just talking about the economy. Right? What you're going to do when you get that money is you're going to spend it. When you spend it, it has a multiplier effect in the economy. You might spend it at the shop. That shopkeeper goes to his supplier and spends it there. The supplier goes to the manufacturer and spends it there. The manufacturer pays his workers and he buys his material. He goes to wherever he buys the material and spends it there. And as it goes through the economy and gets spent, every time that it is spent, it generates taxes. So that
we broaden that base.
That was the idea initially. And the politicians said no for 3 reasons. One, they didn't agree with anything for everybody. You must remember that we still come out of apartheid. We had a system where some get and some don't get. And there is still that feeling that we can't be giving people, again, we need to see who gets and who doesn't get. Right? The second reason they said was that it would make people lazy.
And the old Republican.
And the third reason they said was because people would be irresponsible, they'd be drunkards, they'd just be spending
because
it
right
on
now
booze.
Namibia is on the lower part of alcohol consumption as it is.
In any case, after that, the Lutheran Church saw that this was a good idea because it would have a huge impact on social welfare as well. And they pulled together the Basic Income Grant Coalition of different social partners and all sorts of, even former President Hage Geingob at that time was a big proponent of the big. And they organized a pilot study to show that their argument is right and this other argument is wrong. In Omitara, they gave $100 to the residents, each resident of Omitara. I think it lasted for a year. And they recorded the results, which were incredible. It turned that whole town around. Yeah, it really worked.
So understandably, I mean, it would be disappointing to not see politicians fully take this on, or at least have a fully established voice or understanding of how they would want to tackle it. And let's swing it back to the politicians, because you also spoke about, the apartheid situation, which is true. And sometimes I think it is still reflective in the political sphere because the campaigning doesn't seem to happen outside of one's community for the most part. It's and no one is exempt from this. SWAPO for the most part will campaign at the north. Of course, they do have the government apparatus, so they can move around, inaugurate things.
There's a very interesting development happening right now, which has specific regard to that. You see, our constituencies are delineated and demarcated; they are drawn up. But every so often, there's an exercise where we adjust those borders. And we are currently in that exercise. And on Friday last week, the commission charged with heading this exercise rejected and called off a meeting because the communities had not been consulted by all the different constituency councillors about adjustments to these constituency borders.
Because gerrymandering is...
Now, you must understand that, say there's a specific ethnic group which dominates a specific area. If the border is drawn around that ethnic group and based on our historical trend in terms of voting, perhaps a specific party would have an advantage in that constituency. But if you change the borders to include perhaps a neighboring group, now the dynamics, the political dynamics of that constituency changes dramatically.
Which changes the priorities of the politicians campaigning.
Precisely. And the fact that people have not been able to give their inputs, whether they are disinterested or whether they are uninformed or whether they have not been approached, given the opportunity, it is very dangerous in terms of getting what you want at the end of the day out of the political system, because it affects how much your vote makes a difference. You know, each one of us should know in which constituency we stay and how that constituency looks and what the priorities are in that constituency. Because that's how you get your representative, whoever it is, to fight for those priorities, to make those changes that you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
and I'm also of the belief, though, however, I'm moving away from party just to the presidential aspect, that you're supposed to be in every corner of the country. It is impossible to want to lead one direction of the Namibia, whether it's north, south, east, or west. We need to see your presence in every part of the country. And time and time again, I mean, sometimes you see entire billboards going one direction of the country, and you will not see a single office of another party in a different part of the country. And time again, now I start asking myself, everybody seems to want to lead. Who wants to represent all Namibians?
That is a good question.
And that is where we end our interview. Thank you very much, Algedo, for joining Second Take and making sure that we keep eye level of what's happening in the political world. I sat down with Iriere Marie van der Walt for Namspective yet again, this time focusing on the ECN ballot paper debacle. My oh my, was there a lot of information to digest. Have a look. Joining me now for yet another Namspective is our trusted resident journalist. That's what I'm going to go with now. Resident journalist, Iriere Marie van der Walt. How's it going, Iriere?
I am good, Ashwin. How are you?
I'm good. Better than the independent candidates who couldn't make it into the election.
I mean, I'm not on the ballot either, so I wouldn't say I'm better in any particular regard.
No, but I was just looking at, Friday's Namibian Sun talking about an end of an era for independent candidacy. Sounds rather, gloomy, but, end of an era for this particular election. We understand they didn't manage to garner 7,000 signatures countrywide. This article was by Matthias Haufiku. However, analysts are saying that they jumped the gun, announcing their candidacy without doing the groundwork. What are your thoughts?
I think you have to announce your candidacy in order to do the groundwork. You have to say that, listen, I'm hoping to run as an independent candidate before you go out and say, hey, will you please sign for me? Because nobody's going to sign for you if they don't know who you are. So, but definitely, I don't think our independent candidates did any groundwork. I think
like grassroots work.
I think maybe they had a little bit of a halo over themselves in their own minds.
Halo's apt because Ali Angola said God sorted. So I think halo works quite well there.
I think they kind of had a halo view of themselves in the sense that people are going to sign for me because I'm me,
me. I've got the ideas.
But you're an independent candidate. You're at a disadvantage from the starting line. So you need to do more groundwork than the parties. You need to do more than any party is doing, more than any other presidential candidate is doing, because those other candidates are known in context of the party. And you're not.
No, you're not.
So you need to be doing more. And I don't think we saw that from our independent.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to see how it goes. But the three candidates who had submitted their dates, on the dates of applications was Ali Angula, Elsie Shen, and Jeremiah Campbell. And of course, on that particular submission day, they were told that it shall not be. But we wish you the best in the next election. But let's talk about everything else, surrounding the election right now. We're just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
Safe to say a month away.
Yeah.
Safe to say a month away from elections. I'm going to ask you again, how do you feel about the atmosphere?
I think with the Renform issue, things have taken a very, very big turn. I think there was kind of a question as to do we as Namibians distrust the ECN? There are some rumblings, but do we let this get to us? And I think with the rainform issue,
let's talk about it. What is the rainform
yes.
issue? Just for the sake of the
the rainform issue is the awarding of a tender, an emergency tender, to a company called Rainform in South Africa, a South African company, to print ballot papers. As I understand it, Rainform had previously printed ballot papers in 2009. But Namibia is a whole different country now than it was in 2009. It's a different country now than it was in 2019.
For sure.
So for us to say, but in 2009 they printed ballot papers, I would hope there's been some developments at Rainform and in Namibia in, I think 13 years since then. And the ECN is not being open with Namibians as to why an emergency tender, because they are saying they had to opt for an emergency tender because of the timelines, because they only knew how many ballot papers they had to print when they knew how many voters there were, when that concluded on the 30th of September. Fair enough. But your calendar said that you were going to conclude general registration of voters on the 30th of September. So everything is going according to your calendar. And only after the registration of voters do you go, oh, you have a problem.
Which is a problem, because I don't think I'm going to give them an off for that, because I just feel like, predicting situations like this, estimating situations like this,
it's not a situation.
Be a part of their repertoire. Like, it's
everything's going according to their calendar.
Everything's going according to their calendar. So surely you should be able to estimate a certain, sort of number of people who are going to be there. And even if you were told it's 1.4 million, we understand things like sport ballots and etc. So you're going to print more anyway. So it is interesting that you point out there's a private tender. Now, one of the big issues was when Wickno Chivayo was involved, and this is the Zimbabwean businessman. Opposition parties were alleging that he was a part of this tender. That was a big issue. I saw Namibians having an issue with that. I saw Zimbabweans having an issue with that. And as you know, Zimbabwe has had problems with its elections time and time again. Now, for those of my viewers who do not know who Wickno Chivayo is, we did cover him on Second Take. Here he is. Zimbabwe's Anti-Corruption Commission, yes, it exists, has announced its interest in interrogating some of the country's most notorious characters over a shady $40 million tender deal with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. On the hot seat are the infamous tenderpreneur Wickno Chivayo and ZANU-PF-linked businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu. The drama unfolded after a letter of complaint from Chimombe and Mpofu to South African company REN Form, as well as leaked audios featuring Chivayo, revealed the intricate web of corruption. ZACC spokesperson Commissioner Tandiwe Mlobane issued a statement over the weekend, revealing that the trio is under investigation. However, the announcement, which was posted on X by Information Secretary Nick Mangwana, sparked a deluge of skepticism and sarcasm from netizens who felt the investigation was too little too late. Nonsense. They don't need any tip-off from the public. They should be like hunting for corruption. The public should be surprised by the breaking news. This is instead of protecting the state, they have closed us in. Griped Onias Mutonono, capturing the public's disdain for the delayed response. Enrique de Essenbauer chimed in spite of having the least Zimbabwean name in history, alleging higher-ups in the ZANU-PF were complicit in the graft. They must also call Emerson Dabunzo Mnangagwa to explain what he was doing with Wickno all those times they were seen in public together. Their association gives the impression that the president is complicit. No one should be shielded from the law because of their position. Adding fuel to the fire, another user, Taka, supported this sentiment, while Peter summed up the generational frustration. It's shocking that it has taken a fallout between Chivayo and his ZANU-PF party for the Corruption Commission to see the rot around him. The guy should have been investigated long back, and by now he probably would have been serving his sentence. We deserve better. Chivayo, ever the attention seeker, has recently been the center of controversy with a series of explosive leaked audios. In these recordings, he boasts of his close ties with President Mnangagwa, implying a level of influence that shields shields him from repercussions. The tapes paint Chivayo as an untouchable who has multiplied his wealth 20-fold through government tenders. Not one to shy away from flaunting his ill-gotten gains, Chivayo has reportedly splurged nearly $5 million on luxury vehicles, gifting them to ZANU-PF aligned musicians, social media trolls, and members of his apostolic church. He's also rumored to have purchased a $7 million property in one of Harare's upscale neighborhoods. So as far as I can tell, he's literally worth his weight in corrupt gold. So that is Wigno Chivayo. You kind of start to understand why people feel a little iffy. Of course, he's got links to the Zimbabwean president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, who just last week announced that Daniel Chapo had won. He congratulated him for winning an election in Mozambique that hadn't been announced. So his congratulations came about 5 to 7 days prior to the actual announcement of the election. And this is the Frelimo party in Mozambique, which has close ties to ZANU-PF's party. So, I mean, I wouldn't blame Namibians for raising, more than one eyebrow when it comes to, such entities being aligned with the election process. What are your thoughts? What's the ECN saying about this?
I was in a meeting with some ECN officials yesterday, and after the meeting, they came to me. I'd asked a question about Renform, and they opted not to answer anything about the printing of ballot papers, which is fair enough. I guess you're not the communications manager or whatever. But afterwards, these two people came up to me, and they told me they would release a statement. And I informed them that releasing a statement when nobody believes what the ECN is saying is not equivalent to releasing information. Namibians need information at this point.
Yes.
And they asked me what's wrong with Renform, and I said, just tell the people why Renform.
I mean, why Renform? And also it's a
there's
CC.
probably a logical reason.
Yes.
But just why Renform?
Why Renform
And the response was, why not Renform?
Why not Renform? Excuse me? Does that make sense?
But Renform has also come out and said that they will take legal action against people who equate their relations with Mr. Chivayo.
Look, I expect this from a CC. I don't like the idea of a CC handling an election. Just that on its own is more than enough reasons to question, what's going on. But like you said, like if there were justifiable reasons, surely there should be more than why not?
Show me the justifiable reasons.
Yes.
Then I can go, oh, that's justifiable. I trust the ECN again.
Exactly.
But right now, I have a voter's card in my handbag, and I don't know if it's getting used on the 27th of November because I don't know if my vote will count.
Wow. And I can relate to that feeling. Being someone who grew up in Zimbabwe, I can relate to that feeling. Many times it's been said that the election has been rigged. And it feels, you get a little helpless sometimes. And it's not apathy. It's just that you want something to count. You want to have a voice. You want to have a voice and have a say in where your country is going. But if it feels like it's a predetermined outcome, now
there's no point.
There's no point. Now, the ECN, surely they'll tread softly on this one, considering that they did have issues the last time with regards to voter machines. That was a real thing. They fired someone for disposing of computers, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm looking at all of this, and it's starting to feel like there's a sense of political ego. I don't know what to call it. Some kind of ego, because it feels like we answer to the ECN when it should be
the other way around. That's the thing is, the ECN should jump on a chance to
be as transparent as possible.
Yeah, to be as transparent as possible, and to reaffirm its integrity to the public.
Yes.
Currently, there are issues, and I have the same question as well. In South Africa, people, the higher ups in the South African Electoral Commission are hired by public interviews.
Yes.
Why does the same not count for the Namibian Electoral Commission? But more than that, it should be an institution of integrity.
Yeah.
You should jump at the chance. If you have the receipts, I know if somebody comes to me and says, listen, you're not telling the truth, and I have the receipts, I'm giving them out.
Immediately.
The ECN, more than not giving the people proof that what they're saying is true and what they're doing is justified, more than that, there's this blasé attitude.
That's what I'm talking about.
The ECN.
Yeah.
They sent out a press release when the Renform issue first came out, and they called it unjustified, baseless
accusations.
accusations.
And I should say, Wigno Chivayo did deny any involvement with reform, but just he's an ex-convict. So
Yes.
It's hard to take him at
But
his
just
word.
saying that it's baseless when the
Baseless.
people already don't believe the ECN.
There's a word for that. It's called gaslighting. I don't know if you know any Gen Zs. That's a word that they use, along with other words like boundaries.
Yeah.
Gaslighting. That's what that is.
Yeah. So the thing is, I'm very eager to trust the ECN, right? I want to trust the ECN. I want to trust that my vote is going to mean something come election day. But as it is, there's just this,
So. Okay, so ECN, we'll see if you can allay the fears of Namibians. We aren't too hopeful for a clean and clear democratic process, but ultimately it's going to come down to how much do we care about transparency. That's going to be the word. I do expect election observers to be in Namibia with regards to that, and they certainly won't shy away from any of the facts. So Iliane hopes her vote counts. We trust that it should, but do you care enough about our trust? Now, in our TikTok of the week, South Africa has been going through a lot. We're not talking about load shedding, we're not talking about the economy, we're not talking about the GNU, something even more important, Siyakholisa's divorce.
Ndivile sisi. Ewe loo nto siyalungisa nam ngokunotata. Sizawuphuma siyovela phaa kwaKolisi. Ewe. Hayi sanoyihlalela phantsi bafazi. Loo nto bendisitsho apha kutata ndisithi uba bona as amadoda mabahambe bayothetha noSiya thina sizawushiyeka silungisa lo mntana uRachel. Uyayibona loo nto? Bathi uba we have come to a mutual agreement ntontoni to end our marriage. Ndithi ni-enda njani into engeyo yenu kuba ayingowenu lo mtshato ngowekhadi. Uyayiva ke ngoku? Kuba kaloku uMandela wabanjelwane. Nditsho loo nto uba namhlanje izawuqala isithi uSiya noRachel bohlukene ngomso kukhwitywe ezimbini eShoprite. Hayi phakamani. Umtshato kunyamezela. Nditsho loo nto. Umtshato kunyamezela. Uba ngulo unguSiya omoshileyo makamlungise uRachel, indoda iyalungiswa. Uba nguRachel omoshileyo uSiya makamxele. Hayi samhlela phansi bafazi. Loo nto ndithi masifake i-family responsibility siyohlala phaa noba yiveki.
Thank you for staying with Second Take, not just now, throughout the year, and especially as we head into Namibian elections as hashtag Namibia Decides 2024. Do let us know some of the subjects you would like us to cover, and if you would like to be on Namspective to share your perspective heading towards election. But for now, from me, Ashwin Berry, have a fantastic week. I'll see you next week, Sunday, same time, same place for Second Take.